English in Bulgaria. Emilia Slavova, Sofia University. Looking at Braj-Kachru's famous three circles model of English, we can safely assume that Bulgaria is a typical expanding circle country. It has no colonial past related to the British Empire. English came to it in the late 19th century, while Bulgaria was still part of the Ottoman Empire. Bulgarian English has not been recorded yet on the map of world Englishes, so this presentation makes a modest attempt to correct this. I am going to look at the trajectory of English in Bulgaria since its entry in the 1860s. Then I'll briefly discuss some specific features of Bulgarian English, and I will give examples of present-day language mixing and translanguaging between Bulgarian and English on social media, in online event posters, and in street signs. There must have been English-speaking travelers crossing Bulgaria's lands while it was still under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. But the first official entry of English can be dated back to the year 1860. This is when the first American school for boys was opened in Philippopolis, present-day Plovdiv, by American missionaries from the Congregational Church. Just 3 years later, an American school for girls in Eski Zagra was opened. This is present-day Stara Zagora. Both schools merged and came to Sofia in the year 1926. British English came comparatively late. In 1939, the British Council was opened in Sofia. Just a few years earlier, it was founded as the British Committee for Relations with Other Countries. The gradual progress of English came to a halt during the Second World War when Bulgaria became part of the Axis powers. In 1941, it declared war on the United States. The American College in Sofia had to close and withdraw its teachers. So did the British Council a few years later. The Kingdom of Bulgaria, occupied by the Soviet Army in 1944, declared itself the People's Republic of Bulgaria in 1946. Bulgaria was firmly established on the eastern side of the metaphorical Iron Curtain. In the absence of international and private-owned schools in Bulgaria, a new system of Bulgarian-grown state-owned schools developed, taking their place and often their premises. The first secondary English school for foreign languages opened in Lovech in 1950. It offered mostly classes in German, but also in English and French. In 1956, the English department of the Lovech School moved to Sofia and became the famous English High School. By the 1970s, there was already a dense network of elite English medium high schools in the major cities of Bulgaria. While English remained the language of the ideological enemy, it was highly desired, and a small number of gifted students, as well as the children of the party elite and future diplomats, were trained in those very competitive schools. The linguistic situation in the country changed drastically in 1989 with the fall of the Iron Curtain and the end of the Cold War. There was an explosion of interest in learning English, seen as the language of freedom and democracy. The Open Society Institute opened in 1990 in Bulgaria, making it possible for thousands of Bulgarian students and scholars to study abroad, mostly through English. The British Council in Sofia reopened in 1991. The American University in Blagoevgrad opened in the same year. The American College in Sofia was reopened in 1992, claiming back most of its premises. The Bulgarian Fulbright Commission opened in 1993, bringing to Bulgaria numerous American scholars. The BBC Centre also opened in 1994. The sociolinguistic situation in Bulgaria can well be described by the metaphor proposed by Laurie O'Reilly, a linguistic sibling rivalry between the United Kingdom and the United States. Britain, on the one hand, focused on British English as the language of literature and academic attainment. It provided British teachers for the English medium schools and universities, and it created well-resourced university libraries and provided teacher training for the fast-growing linguistic market. On the other hand, the United States focused on American English as the gateway to economic and technical and scientific knowledge. It brought American teachers mostly in the area of math and sciences. It offered courses in marketing, in advertising, in business, in management, international trade, macro and microeconomics, and it focused on business English at the university level. Another major change in the development of English in Bulgaria was the country's joining the European Union in 2007. This gave access to people not only to the Anglo-American English taught at primary, secondary, and tertiary educational level in Bulgaria, but to a wide variety of European Englishes spoken across the continent. In addition to the free travel now accessible to Bulgarian citizens, they were able to choose education in European universities, as opposed to mostly American universities in the 90s. There was also the opportunity offered by the Erasmus Plus program, both for students studying in European universities and European students coming to Bulgaria on exchange programs. The labor market opened up for Bulgarians, and English was the main language through which Bulgarians found employment. And the numerous European institutions generated a massive amount of documentation which needed to be translated into and from English. As a result, we can say that Bulgaria is now a full participant in what Marco Modiano has referred to as Euro-English, a variety that has taken a life of its own. The typical features of Bulgarian English are quite similar to the features of Euro-English and Slavic Englishes described in the literature. For example, the tapped R sound can be heard quite distinctly, similar to the Scottish R. The American rhotic R is much easier to produce than the British non-rhotic R in final position. The dental fricatives th and th are quite difficult for many Bulgarians, so they might be replaced by th fronting this and thanks, or th stopping this and thanks. Another typical feature for many Bulgarians speaking English would be the devoicing of final voiced consonants, because this is what they do in Bulgarian. For example, job would be job, gig would be gig, and so on. There is no long-short vowel distinction in Bulgarian, so ship and sheep would also often be confused. Finally, there are difficulties with some vowel sounds, such as a, as in hat, which could be het, or cat, which could be pronounced kut. As a result of the explosive development of English in Bulgaria after the 1990s, coinciding with the processes of globalization and the revolution in communication and digital technologies, we can see English in virtually all spheres of life: in education, in business, in IT, in advertising, in marketing, in medicine, in law, in academia. One area where English is quite distinctly present is also the world of social networks, which I decided to observe through my own participation in one of those networks, namely Facebook. What I noticed, however, contrary to my expectations to a degree, is that most people who are Bulgarians in my bubble would communicate in Bulgarian. However, they would often switch to English for specific phrases or sentences. So there's a lot of code switching and code mixing, lots of transliterations also done for fun, wordplay. So something spelled in English in Bulgarian or vice versa. Whenever there is a link in English referring to an article from the English-speaking world, the discussion underneath would be in English even between Bulgarians. And based on these rather impressionistic observations, I could safely say that English is the default second language on Bulgarian social media. People use it freely and expect others to use it and understand it. I haven't observed anything like that with French or German or any other of the popular European languages. The next area of interest where I decided to focus my attention were online event posters. I collected a corpus of 120 Facebook posters in which English and Bulgarian appeared simultaneously or alternately. The first group, as you can see from this example, are posters written entirely in English. Everything from the name of the event to the place, the time of the week, and the participants is written in English only, without a trace of Bulgarian. The next group of posters in my corpus, and the most typical group, are posters written both in English and Bulgarian, and sometimes another language. In this specific example, you can see this principle in practice. Here we have the name of the place in Italian, La Vita Club. We have the event described in English, Acoustic Blues Night. We have the name of the band, Puduene Blues Band, written in Bulgarian, but it is a transliteration of two English words, blues and band. And we also have the time in Bulgarian, the 12th of July. The beginning is at 10 o'clock, entry fee is 10 leva, and finally we have the town written in English, Ahtopol. So you can see how there is a lot of code switching between Bulgarian and English, and you need to know both languages in order to interpret this poster. The largest group of posters in the corpus represent a mixture of English and Bulgarian, and often another language, in this case Italian. We have the place of the event, La Vita Club, written in Italian. We have the name of the event, Acoustic Blues Night, written in English. We have the time, 12th of July, and the beginning, 10 o'clock p.m., and the entry fee, 10 leva, written in Bulgarian, while the town is written in English, Ahtopol. Finally, we have the name of the band performing, Puduene Blues Band, written in Bulgarian, but the two words blues and band are obviously transliterated from English. In the next example, we see a poster written almost entirely in Bulgarian. Its name, Лятна случка, means summer event, and it refers to a summer festival high up in the mountains. On both sides of the poster, you have the names of the participants spelled in Cyrillic and in Latin, but even some of the words in Latin, such as Mesechinka, refer to Bulgarian words, meaning little moon. At the same time, you can see a long list of hyphenated words written in Bulgarian, which are actually transliterations of English words. Ethno, green, fusion, Balkan, fun, healthy, sci-fi, music, fest. In the next poster, you can see an interesting combination between English and Bulgarian. While the main part of the poster is written in Bulgarian and refers to a summer festival somewhere high in the mountains, we have the names of the bands participating written in a mixture of English and Bulgarian. Some of the words written in English or perhaps in Latin script actually are transliterated Bulgarian words such as mesechinka on the left-hand side. At the bottom of the poster, we have the reverse phenomenon. We have a long hyphenated list of words written in Bulgarian, but they're all English words. Ethno, green, fusion, Balkan, fun, healthy, sci-fi, music, fest. In the next example, again we have a combination of English and Bulgarian words, but we also have something new here. We have script mixing. Within the word beer, we see the first letter replaced by the Bulgarian b. So we have a good example of translanguaging, of playing with the language and bringing up different associations. My next group of examples comes from the area of linguistic landscaping. I collected a corpus of 240 street signs from the center of Sofia and tried to find the patterns used to name shops, cafes, restaurants, and other outlets. One of the typical ways of naming your place would be by just using an English name, such as simple, taste the world. This is, in effect, an Italian restaurant. Another popular naming practice would be the use of parallel Bulgarian and English signs. So here we have a Russian restaurant written in English, and in larger letters we have Arbat, Русский restaurant, Russian restaurant written in Bulgarian. Interestingly, there was no Russian sign, although the Russian would be very close to the Bulgarian one, but also slightly different. Another example in the corpus represents a rather typical trend of mixing Bulgarian and English and another language, in this case Italian. The Bulgarian and the English inscription are more or less interchangeable. They both mean call and take home. The Italian inscription, on the other hand, ottimo, means best and is not transparent. The words in the small print beneath, pizza and pasta, are clearly understandable both through English and in Bulgarian. And what I find interesting in this example, which is quite typical, quite popular, is that contrary to many people's expectations that global English was going to replace other languages, what we see in the streets of Sofia is that English usually coexists peacefully with other languages. In my last example from my linguistic landscaping corpus, we have a trendy shop for baby clothes called Bebeshor. Now, bebe is the Bulgarian word for baby, and shor is a Bulgarian suffix, a kind of a diminutive suffix, so something like little baby. What is interesting here is that we have the first half bebe written in Cyrillic in Bulgarian, but the second half shor written in English and clearly referring to a seashore, evident via the curvy line under the E. In the second line, we have Webster style, which doesn't mean an awful lot, but it's obviously a coinage, a blending between baby and hipster. So, a great example of script mixing, of translanguaging, going beyond languages, using visual elements in addition to linguistic elements, and a good example of playing with language. To wrap it all up, I would like to point out once again that English made its entry in Bulgaria officially in the 1860s, while Bulgaria was still part of the Ottoman Empire. American missionaries brought the English language via a number of schools for boys and girls. This development, supported by the British Council in the 1930s, was cut short by the communist regime, which was established in Bulgaria between 1944 and 1989. After that, after the fall of the communist regime, English in Bulgaria underwent an explosive growth, partly supported by Bulgaria's opening to the wide world and desire to join the democratic world, and partly by the institutions which greatly facilitated this, British and American institutions. To wrap it all up, we saw how English made its official entry into Bulgaria in the 1860s, brought by American missionaries who educated a whole generation of future Bulgarian teachers and ministers and diplomats and government officials. This development was cut short by the communist regime established in Bulgaria between 1944 and 1989. After its fall, English had an explosive comeback in Bulgaria, partly facilitated by the Bulgarians' aspirations to join the free world, and partly supported by various organizations and institutions such as the British Council, such as the Fulbright Commission, the Open Society, educational institutions, and so on. Bulgaria's joining the European Union is another factor in the English language growing in popularity. So much so that today English is the default foreign language in the country. In our exploration of social media, of linguistic landscapes, and of online advertising, we saw how English, rather than displacing Bulgarian altogether, enters into various situations and interactions such as code switching, such as code mixing, script mixing, transliterations in both directions, and translanguaging. All this comes to show us that Bulgarians are growing quite confident in their ownership of English, and that Bulgarian English can be said to be the new kid on the block on the map of world Englishes. Thank you. And here are my references.